M&S have done a great job
haven't
sort
they?
of harnessing influencers and celebrities.
It works. I'm head to toe M&S today.
M&S if you're interested.
How are contracts and prices negotiated, disputed, agreed upon?
And prices, I think there's a little bit of that sometimes.
The right post from the right influencer can have lodges sold out for months in advance.
There's risk associated with working with anyone, whether it's an influencer, whether it's a celeb.
Yeah, you can only look at what they have said.
And celebrity scandals sells newspapers.
Always have.
It always has, and I think it's something that has filtered down into modern technology. It's about driving traffic to the site, it's about driving engagement on social.
I think the Beckhams will never go out of fashion, no matter what they
Well,
do.
not with Brooklyn currently.
No, he's feeding the machines.
And I think actually that can be a more powerful tool to unlock for a brand than just going for a mass market approach.
I agree. I think what we're seeing now is far more creativity. It's not just enough to say, I have a brand, I'm going to pay this person to say it's good.
Yeah.
People are looking to how can we creatively amplify that to make it really resonate with audiences. Welcome to What's Got the World Talking, the podcast that delves into what's on the minds of the marketing, PR and social media world. Today, we're talking about the blurred lines around the role that celebrities and influencers play in brand marketing strategies. In a world where fame is constantly being redefined, who is shaping public opinion? Is it traditional celebrities with real cultural capital, reality stars riding their wave of 50 minutes of fame, or niche influencers building passionately loyal audiences from their bedroom? I'm joined by Associate Creative Director Dan Gabriel and Senior News Director Amy Brookbanks to unpack how celebrity is defined now, how influence is generated when audience attention is more fragmented than ever, and what senior marketers need to know before hitching their brand and its reputation to the celebrity wagon. Hi, Amy, Dan, welcome back. Do you want to start by introducing yourselves?
Yes, I'm Amy Brookbanks, the Senior News Director at WPR.
And I'm Dan, Associate Creative Director at WPR.
So today we're here to talk about all things celebrity and their role in marketing. So let's start with the basics. How do we even define celebrity now as the lines blur between celebrities, influencer, celebrities?
Shall I take this one?
Yeah, you go first.
I don't think the definition of celebrity has necessarily changed. I think the way that we categorise celebrities has certainly evolved, and this isn't something that's just happened over recent years. I think it's taken a long time. I think if we think back to what we would see as more traditional celebrities 15, 20 years ago, it was film stars, it was people in TV, it was sports personalities. And I think we, in more recent years, saw the rise of what we would call manufactured celebrities. So I think we saw a big influx of reality TV stars, driven by the likes of X Factor and Love Island and all of those shows that kind of catapulted people into the limelight. And I think more recently, we've shifted to more of those sort of micro celebrity audiences and more kind of niche communities, creator economy, looking at more sort of tailored audiences, I suppose, rather than mass reach, kind of broadcast reach celebrities that we would have traditionally seen over recent years.
So when does an influencer become a celebrity? Or when does a celebrity become an influencer?
I think Molly May's quite a good example of that. So she was a big sort of fashion and beauty influencer first. Then she went on Love Island, then became a reality star. And now she's one of the UK's biggest, most successful celebrities. So I would say she was a good example, but the lines are quite blurry these days. You've got influencers who are now sort of celebrities.
Yeah.
And then you've got your classic sort of celebrities trying to be influencers in order to get these big brand deals. And it's successful for them. If they've got a big following on Instagram, then they're able to get these big name brand deals. And that's what people are sort of looking for these days.
I suppose the line between celebrity and influencer may be crossed when it comes just down to number of followers you have on social media.
Yeah, I think, I also don't think it's as clean cut as that. I think it's really easy to sort of carve up your community size and try and establish
micro, macro, mid-tier celebrity.
You've got nano, you've got micro, you've got macro, you've got mega, which I suppose is that sort of 1 million plus. But I think because
even the terminology changes by the week.
Yeah, absolutely, and it will be different wherever you look. It'll be different depending on which article you're reading, essentially. So I don't think it's as clean cut as follower numbers. I think there are sort of other elements that establish whether that person has celebrity status, because celebrity status could be, defined within a really niche community. It could be something that's really specific to a certain audience. So I don't think it's necessarily as clean cut as how many followers do you have on social media these days.
So from a brand's perspective, what are the key differences between an influencer and a celebrity?
I think it's a really interesting question, because I think from a brand perspective, I think previously it would have just been about mass market reach. It's getting as many eyeballs on your brand or your product as possible. And I think the dial has shifted slightly in terms of the objectives for a lot of brands. And sometimes it's not just about reaching as many people as possible. It's about making sure that you're reaching people with relevancy, and having a smaller community or more of a niche audience might be the case of working with a different type of personality to ensure that you're reaching an audience where they are most active.
And from a journalist perspective, Amy?
I think celebrities are those people that are currently on TV, they're on big shows, they're sort of legendary, iconic, mainstream media, mass market celebrities. So, your Hollywood stars, your TV presenters, your sort of ITV daytime crew, or if they've got a Netflix show. And then I think your influencers are those people that predominantly make their money off Instagram and TikTok. And you will see that they're being written about much more in the mainstream media now. And then, of course, you've got things like Netflix doing documentaries about them. You've got Louis Theroux's Manosphere on at the moment, which is all about influencers. So the lines are blurry, but I think there is still that categorization of these people.
Yeah, the lines are definitely blurry. You can see that big crossover. What do marketers need to think about in terms of how fame is generated now versus 10, 20 years ago?
I think it's really important to think really specifically about your audience and where they're most active. As I say, I think for a lot of brands, it's easy to go into that default of we need to reach as many people as possible, but I think the relevancy of that reach is becoming more important than ever before. And I think, certainly over the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen a rise in the creator economy. We've seen more brands working with niche or specialist creators to reach really specific communities online. And I think actually that can be a more powerful tool to unlock for a brand than just going for a mass market approach. So I think it's about really thinking of your audience first and where they are to make sure that you're aligning your partnership with the key demographic that you're looking to reach.
Do you think there's even more homework that has to be done now before you appoint your chosen celebrity and or influencer?
Yes, I think so. I think it's really important to do your research and to really understand. I think particularly if you are working with celebrities, it's about making sure that they have no skeletons in their closets, doing really deep dive into their past and just making sure. And there's risk associated with working with anyone, whether it's an influencer, whether it's a celeb.
Yeah, you can only look at what they have said. You can't predict what they're going to say in future, can you? There's always an element of risk attached to it.
Absolutely. I think it's about making sure that you have the right protections in place as a brand, so you are able to end a partnership if anything came out or anything came to light that would be deemed as potentially damaging for the brands. It's making sure that you have those reassurances in place, but just doing your due diligence and making sure that you're kind of researching that partner in as much depth as you possibly can, as well as using it as an opportunity to sort of news test and again sort of making sure that you are keeping the key objectives of that partnership in mind. If it is about driving media coverage, we'd always recommend speaking to someone who's worked in the media, speaking to a journalist and sense checking, like, do they have that relevance? Do they have that appeal to the audiences that you're looking to reach? Do they also give you the traction that you need from an earned media perspective?
And again, from a journalist perspective, Amy, have you ever, when you were on the dark side or the light side, whatever you want to call it, did you ever kind of see a a celebrity / brand partnership that you thought was particularly spot on, or one that you just thought, that's not working for me, I don't get it?
Yes, I think Michelle Keegan and Very is a good example of that. You know, everybody always wants to know what she's wearing, where she's getting it from, and it also needs to be affordable. So Very and Michelle Keegan, I think, was a really great partnership, which has been going for years and years.
I think going for years and years helps the consumer buy into it as well. It's not just a sort of flash in the pan moment. You believe there's a great brand partnership there.
Mm-hmm. So I think Mrs. Hinch and Home Bargains is another good example. Obviously, everybody wants what she's got in her house, and again, it has to be really affordable for her fan base. But also, you know, it's good quality. It looks nice. I thought that was a really great idea.
I agree. And Dan, got any you want to add to that?
I think a recent example of a celebrity brand partnership that I think was really successful. I think M&S have done a great job
haven't they?
harnessing influencers and celebrities.
They really have.
That is the best example.
And it's such a good example because I think they've really done a great job in shifting audience perception of the brand, particularly within their clothing range. And I might just be saying this because I'm at the sharp end of 30, but for me, I think they have really diversified their audience, and I think the Spencer Matthews and what's his name, Mark
Wright,
was it?
Yeah. It was the Marks and Spencers. Obviously there was the humorous element of that partnership, but it really helped to change the perception of M&S being a slightly older, kind of a bit of a stuffy brand, I think, in some ways. And they've worked with a lot of younger creators, and they've worked with the likes of Jordan North and you know the Capital One crew more recently. And it feels like it's a fresh, it's a cool brand. It's one that, you know, certainly the millennials are going, wow, my eyes are open to M&S again. I mean, I think pretty much everything I'm wearing is from
I was about to say, it works.
To
I'm head to toe M&S today. It's like
this episode has not been sponsored by M&S, but we might be coming to them in the future because we appear to have major brand fans here.
Yeah, their home stuff and their food is amazing. And I really like how with the influencers and the food, they're just using them on Instagram to be like, oh, night in tonight with my snacks, and it's brilliant. Yeah, that's the best example.
I think a lot of brands are harnessing celebrity partnerships in a way that really helps to elevate brand messaging and tone of voice and personality. Like, I think of some of the more recent ones that have been over the last few weeks. There's the Gemma Collins partnership with Canva, which, you know, they appointed her as their creative director.
Yeah.
It was really funny, you know, it was the GC being as only she can be, and I think bringing that sort of humour and relatability to the brand is something that I think is really important. I think more recently, M&S and the Gillian Anderson partnership was really great. You know, you were speaking about the Manosphere, which is a really shocking documentary I watched over the weekend, but it made me really think about how algorithms can really feed on negativity. And I think what M&S has done really successfully with Gillian Anderson is they've flipped that narrative on its head, and they're going after something that's really positive. That Love That message, I think, was a really great one. You know, the doom and gloom that's out there at the moment, they're really leaning into positivity and sort of people bigging each other up and providing that support for others. So I think the Gillian Anderson partnership is another great piece of work from M&S in terms of driving that message to
I agree. I think what we're seeing now is far more creativity. It's not just enough to say, I have a brand, I'm going to pay this person to say it's good.
Yeah.
People are looking to how can we creatively amplify that to make it really resonate with audiences, which is why we spent so much of today talking about M&S.
Absolutely.
Fair play to
brand
them.
Fans.
So I have a sort of separate question away from M&S. Do you think celebrities can still shape public opinion, or is that the role of influencers now? I think we see a lot of celebrities try to shape public opinion and it backfires. So what's your views on that area?
I think celebrities can shape public opinion when it's done in a really authentic... I mean, we talk a lot about it. Again, it's that word that's bandied around a lot in marketing, but I think authenticity is more important than ever before when it comes to shaping public opinion, when it comes to changing perception of a brand in the eyes of the consumer. I think one of the things that we really see from brand marketing is that longevity of partnership. And when it feels really authentic and relatable and it's consistent and happens over time, that's when you can start to turn the dial in terms of driving public opinion. So I think consumers have become a lot more skeptical of partnerships. I think you can spot it from a mile away if it doesn't feel authentic. And I think certainly where we have brand collaborations that feel like they're really grounded in something that's real is where it can actually really start to tackle the public perception of a brand.
I think this is where the influencers have sort of crept in, really, because consumers and readers and audiences want that authenticity, and so they started to think that celebrities weren't telling the truth, they were just cashing in, and this is where influencers have sort of stolen the spotlight a little bit, because they are authentic, they're real people. They weren't starting out with brand deals, they were talking about things that were genuinely brilliant on their social media pages, and this is why I think they've become so popular now, and people are sort of distrusting celebrities a little bit, aren't they? Unless it is a genuine, authentic partnership, like you say.
I totally agree. I think, like so many things, I think that consumer behaviour was accelerated by COVID, because I think we got to the point as consumers where we didn't want to see this perfect, polished picture of this image of celebrity being
there
really...
There were a number of celebrities, weren't there, that just did see a backlash and moaning about their life from inside their palatial abodes.
Exactly, and it felt really inaccessible for the everyday consumer. So I think we saw this real shift in behaviour. People were looking for real sort of peer-led connection. They wanted to see people who were real and unpolished and relatable, and I think that really helped to fuel the rise in the creator economy, because people were looking for something that felt a little bit more authentic and a little bit less polished. And I think it started to turn the dial away from the typical celebrity that felt a little bit more inaccessible and out of reach for the everyday person.
So let's think about when and why working with a celebrity might work for a brand. Are there specific industries that you think celebrity/influencer partnerships work really well for? And are there any industries where you'd say, I can't see a celebrity-influencer partnership working?
I think there are definitely industries where celebrity endorsement, celebrity partnership feels more authentic. I think the ones that instantly spring to mind are fashion, the beauty industry as well, highly influenced by online communities, by kind of seeing products being used by like-minded people. So I think the fashion and the beauty industry has always used celebrity to sell products and to kind of endorse a brand or a certain way of life. I think there are certain sectors where you have to be careful with the way spending is portrayed. So like the charity sector, for example, a lot of charitable organisations will work with celebrities in terms of partnerships and ambassadorships. I think if you're ever in a situation where you're paying a celebrity, you've got to be really careful the way that that's represented to a consumer, because it's that sort of charitable spending that's going on that partnership. So I think it can work for a really broad range of industries, but I think if there's anything that might be contentious or divisive for a consumer, it's probably best to steer away, and just making sure that it's perceived in a way that would be seen as being a responsible spending for that brand or organisation.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. So you're in a sector where working with a celebrity makes sense. Where do you start with choosing the right face of your campaign, your brand?
It's a really interesting question. I think I made this point earlier, but I think it's really important to start audience first. I think having that real grasp and understanding of your audience, where they are operating, what channels are they on. There's no point if you're trying to reach a Gen Z audience in working with a mass market, mass reach celebrities that's going to get you loads of tabloid coverage, for example, because ultimately that isn't going to resonate with your audience. It's really important that you're considering the channels that they're operating on, where are they most prominent, and the type of personalities that they are most likely to resonate with. I think if you have a really a niche audience or a niche community, it's definitely worth exploring more of that sort of creator marketing approach. Whatever industry you're in, there is almost always a specialist area of the internet or on social that will kind of match the demands and will meet the community that you're looking to target. So I would certainly start by looking at depth into your audience, their behaviours, what channels they're operating across. And I think where you can actually start to get a feel for the sort of celebrity that might resonate with them as well. So whether that's through focus groups, whether it's through social media, social listening, to try and understand the sort of celebrities that might resonate with them. That's kind of where I would begin.
And Amy, until not all that long ago, you were a showbiz editor. So what celebrities are the media most interested in at the moment, and why?
So it's not your Hollywood movie stars. This is why the
Which
Oscars...
is good, because not many brands can afford to partner with a Hollywood movie star, probably. So.
Yeah, it's still your classic sort of reality stars. They're still doing really well. But you'll see now that there's more content around influencers, because that's what audiences are interested in.
There is more content, because I remember when you first joined, you were saying, oh, the media aren't so interested in influencers, but I've seen a shift in that.
Yeah, there's been a huge shift recently, and I think I'm told it all stemmed from this influencer called Brittany Miller, who was revealed to have faked her own cancer. So all the mainstream media started writing about this influencer, and it did so well that they started to sort of experiment and do more stories about influencers. So I'm told it's all the sort of bad news that does well.
So when you say done really well for them, I presume you mean from a click perspective.
Yeah,
that's how a journalist would, I presume, decide which celebrities they're most interested in. It's be the ones that get the most clicks, comments, etc.
Exactly. It's the clicks on the websites. And so that also influences what is written about in the print editions as well. So they're very much looking at what are readers interested in, who's driving the most clicks. And also with the subscription sites, they're seeing how many clicks they get on that as well. So they have all this data to hand, and that's what journalists are looking for with, marketing or a media partnership as well. They want to do interviews with celebrities for brand campaigns that are going to drive traffic to the website. I think a lot of the time they're offered celebrities with brand partnership deals that they're not interested in. It's a celebrity that doesn't drive traffic for them, or it's a celebrity who won't talk about the biggest news story in their life at the moment, and so that's not of interest to them. So I think there's that sort of line, isn't there, that a brand might pick a celebrity for a partnership, but the media aren't interested in them. So that wouldn't be very successful, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that we're seeing a lot of in earned media is that rise of stories that start in social. And I think we're seeing a lot more of influencers as experts. And I was talking earlier about that rise in sort of niche communities. I think journalists are now starting to see influencers as credible spokespeople within certain spaces. So, content that goes viral on TikTok now translates into editorials. So you get news coverage around stories where people have been talking about a particular subject matter and it's gone viral. And that kind of virality of content, I think, is translating into earned media really effectively, but also using creators as the voice of a certain topic or a certain area of expertise. We're seeing a lot more of that, I think, over recent months.
Yeah, you've still got your classic celebrities, though. I think the Beckhams will never go out of fashion, no matter what they do.
Not with Brooklyn currently.
No, he's feeding the machine, so that'll keep going.
Yeah.
You've got Katie Price. She's dominated headlines with her weight loss.
I mean, celebrity scandal sells newspapers.
Always have.
It always has. And I think that notion of taking a peek behind the curtain and understanding a bit more about what's going on in this person's life, I think it's something that has filtered down into modern technology. So now it's not just about selling hard copies of the paper, it's about driving traffic to the site, it's about driving engagement on social. And there is a darker side of that as well, because I think that sort of almost uncovering of people's lives, it can bring a darker side of the algorithm, where it is driving engagement around people like Katie Price, who's clearly deeply troubled.
But do you think celebs can ever really shape the perception of a brand, or is it just about getting eyeballs on a brand, making some noise around a brand at a key point?
I think this goes back to, without mentioning M&S over and over again, honestly.
I think M&S this episode should be sponsored by M&S.
Yeah. M&S, if you're interested, you know, to find us. I think M&S did a great job with the brand partnership, with the celebrity partnerships, with that kind of creator marketplace, because they delivered it consistently over a sustained period of time. It wasn't just one campaign that they did overnight and it disappeared and they went back to their old ways. It was something that formed a really key part of their strategic approach and how they were going to position their brand in the eyes of the consumer. So I think having that consistency, the authenticity of the partnership, but doing it over a prolonged period of time is where you can really start to drive impact. And I think that's what M&S has done really successfully in terms of shifting not just the perception of the brand, but the entire audience profile. And the fact that we're all massive M&S advocates now is testament to that.
Yeah, I agree. So that's when it works really well. Do you think there's ever a risk that a celebrity is brought in as a sticking plaster for a weak idea to make up for failings in other areas of brand marketing?
I think it can be seen as a lazy tactic in marketing. I think if you don't have a really good creative concept at the core of your campaign or your activation, a celebrity can just be seen as an easy route to generating eyeballs on the content. And I think if it doesn't have that resonance with the end user, that's when it can really backfire. So I think it's really important to make sure that any campaign, certainly from a creative perspective, if we're suggesting a campaign, it would never hinge on the celebrity. The celebrity will support and amplify the message, but it wouldn't be the crux of the campaign. It wouldn't be the only thing that makes it stand out, because if you take that celebrity out of the equation, ultimately it needs to stand on its own 2 feet and have that sort of visibility with the audience. I think it can be a bit of a lazy tactic for getting cut through.
Yeah. And we all know that celebrity partnerships don't always go according to plan. We could list many examples, which we're not going to. Obviously, if you get it wrong, it's an expensive, high-profile disaster. What are the most common mistakes brands make when working with celebrities / influencers, and how can you avoid making those?
I think from a journalist's perspective, it is that type of, they assume that everyone will be interested in their brand or their campaign because they've got a celebrity, but they might not necessarily have the intel that, you know, newspapers and magazines aren't interested in this person. They've got nothing to talk about in their real life. I think a lot of PRs and brands just assume, oh, they'll write about it and they'll give us a credit and they'll stick in the pictures and things. But actually, if they don't have a strong exclusive line to talk about, if they're not open to talking about their real life, they're not going to get the press for that brand.
Certainly from a brand perspective, I think where they miss the mark the most is when it's not in line with current societal beliefs and understanding. I think a really good example of this is, I don't know if you remember, it's quite a few years ago now, but when Pepsi did the ad with Kendall Jenner, where she was out at protest, and this was around the time of Black Lives Matter, and we had Kendall Jenner out with a kind of Pepsi, and then she gave it to one of the policemen at the protest, and he drank it and all was well. And it massively backfired for obvious reasons, because it was really out of touch with society and what was going on, and it actually trivialized something that was really important to communities, to people all around the world. And Pepsi were really quick to act on it. They pulled the ad within 24 hours and they issued an apology. They understood that it missed the mark because it didn't really recognise what was going on in society, and it was out of touch, essentially. So I think it's really important to make sure that any messaging that you're putting out there to the market is really in line with your audience, but really kind of understands some of the challenges of current society.
And do you think Pepsi stood by their chosen celebrity sufficiently? Because I've seen a few examples where it has gone wrong and the brand has just walked away and left this poor celebrity / influencer just in the eye of a storm on their own.
Yeah, I mean, I think in fairness, I don't actually think it was the celebrity's fault in that circumstance. I think it was a misguided campaign from the start from Pepsi. So there was not much that they could do to really counteract that. I think what's really important with any celebrity partnership for a brand, is if the celebrity does something in the public domain that doesn't align with their values, that could be seen to damaging reputation. I think distancing from that celebrity is probably the right thing if it's done in the right way. And I think staying true to your values as a brand, staying true to your customer and to your audience is probably the most important thing. Making sure that you have the protections in place if the celebrity does something untoward that could be perceived as damaging to your brand.
The risks are two-way as well, because a celebrity can get involved with a brand and there could be some incident surrounding that as well. So there's a lot of due diligence to be done on both sides, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think staying true to your brand and staying true to your values is the most important thing. And consumers will understand and they'll forgive if you are transparent. I think when brands try and brush things under the carpet, that's when it becomes a little bit more contentious, because people want to feel that they have that authenticity from the brand as well as any celebrity that would be partnering with them.
Is there such a thing as a safe celebrity anymore? Is any celebrity free of the investigations and the digging that you might have done in your days at The Sun, Amy?
I would say a safe celebrity. There are some. Giovanna Fletcher.
Oh, yeah.
She, there's no scandal. There's no skeletons in her closet.
At the moment, not that we know of. You never know. It could be the quiet ones you've got to look out for.
That will be the story, won't it, if she's got some scandal. She's a wholesome mom who's married to a lovely pop star. So, yeah, I think she's an example of a safe celebrity. But really, it is hard to find those people now, because you never know what's going to happen in their lives.
I think the fact of the matter is, society at this current time, like we're in a cancel culture, and I think the mainstream media can make a celebrity overnight, but it can also break a celebrity overnight. So I think it's really important that brands do those safety checks. You do as much digging as is humanly possible to try and understand and evaluate the potential risk of that partnership. And like you said, there will be certain celebrities that seem to be lower risk. If they're not outwardly controversial or they don't say anything that could be deemed as damaging to a brand, the chances of them doing something during a partnership are pretty low. However, it's always possible. So it's just about making sure that you have those adequate protections in place if anything was to happen.
What about celebrities who might be having their 15 minutes of fame? Because I think there obviously is a moment you step out of the jungle, the Love Island villa, whatever it might be. There's a real temptation for brands to say, everyone's talking about them, now is the moment to strike up that partnership. But that presumably is a moment of high risk as well, because you don't know all the skeletons in those closets.
You don't, because those people are newer to the limelight quite often. I think particularly if they come off the back of a reality TV show. And, you do see it. People come out and they get these kind of, massive brand partnership deals, and then stuff does come out, something they said on Twitter 10 years ago. It's really important to try and do as much digging as possible around. And I think, there is a short-term benefit of those partnerships. Sometimes I think if they're done in the right way, you can ride the wave of that 15 minutes
and you've got to strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah.
Because another series of the traitors will be upon us before you know it, or Love Island, whatever it might be, that you haven't got long, have you, to capitalise on that mass interest in that person at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also just about making sure that it's hyper relevant to the brand and to the message that you're trying to communicate, not just working with them because they are in the limelight at that moment, because I think consumers will see through that. So I think where it does have that relevance and credibility, or you can lean into the more sort of humorous elements.
I think that's where it works really well.
Yeah.
Where you're very direct about, we're partnering with them because everyone's talking about them, but do that.
Yeah.
And that goes back to what we were discussing earlier, having the creative hook.
Yeah,
underpinning
absolutely.
the campaign.
Absolutely. I think Innocent did it, because it can also work with celebrities who perhaps haven't been in the limelight as much recently. And I think Innocent did a really good job of this.
Oh, I know what you're going to talk
Duncan
about.
From
that
Blue.
Was brilliant.
They worked with Duncan from Blue, and it was many, many years after Blue had been, at their peak of their stardom. And it was really tongue-in-cheek because they were just posting pictures of them on social media being like, oh, we've got Duncan from Blue on board, like best 50 quid we ever spent. Like it was,
it was absolutely brilliant. We're still talking about it years later.
It was really funny. They kind of lent into the fact that he wasn't actually really in the limelight at that point in time. And it was very on brand for Innocent. It really aligned to their tone of voice. It drove a huge amount of online interaction and engagement around the partnership. So I think it goes back to that sort of playful element of working with celebrities and making something that is unexpected and a little bit more tongue-in-cheek to elevate brand's tone of voice.
So we've talked about celebrities and capturing them when they're having their 15 minutes of fame. Is there a moment where a celebrity's past their peak and you need to question working with them?
I think there's definitely those celebrities who have cashed in too much. They've taken on too many brands, and now their fans and the public start to question whether they're real. They're actually, they believe in this product, or is it because they're getting paid loads of money to say it's good?
I think it's hard as well for an influencer that starts out as an influencer, becomes a celebrity. They can have kind of made their name on talking about saving money or great deals or whatever it might be. Then all of a sudden it's like, well, we know you're worth millions and millions, so I don't buy that from you anymore. What a celebrity can be used for can fluctuate and change quite a lot.
I think there is an important point, because the mainstream media will be really quick to pick up on anything that comes across as hypocritical. So if somebody positions themselves as, I'm salt of the earth, I'm down to earth, I'm here to help people, it's about kind of saving money and all of that sort of thing, and then you're seen jetting off to the Maldives, it can be picked up on very quickly. So I think it's important in terms of how you represent yourself as a brand as well.
It's always the same, isn't it? Bad news sells, scandal sells, and an article that is knocking somebody is going to get, again, more clicks. I'm not proud to say that's the world we live in, but it's the truth of the world that we live in.
It is, and it's a really scary thing. Again, going back to that Louis Theroux documentary, these people have, we talk a lot about the positives of creator marketing and the value that it can add for brands, but there is a dark side of social media and algorithms that will feed negativity, and I think it's something that we also need to be mindful of as marketers, particularly when the end user is young, impressionable children, ultimately, who still haven't formed an opinion of the world. So I think it's something that can be seen as it's a force of good in many ways, but it can also be quite dangerous in the wrong hands.
So away from choosing the right celebrity, let's talk about the practicalities of working with a celebrity. How are contracts and prices set, fixed, negotiated, disputed, agreed upon?
It's a good question. Prices, I think there's a little bit of that sometimes. It's really difficult, and a lot of creators they recognise and understand that for a lot of them this is their their main source of income. They've monetized it really effectively, rightly so. It's a career for many people. And they will have rate cards and guidelines on how much they'll be charging for a reel or a carousel post or whatever it might be.
But it'll sure be really flexible as well, because if you're a brand that influencer really wants to work for, because it's a great association, will elevate their profile, you're going to get a better rate than if you're a brand they're relatively indifferent about. Absolutely.
I think authenticity is really key from both sides. So there has to be that alignment piece from the brand's perspective with the creator, but it goes both ways. And I think if that creator really believes in that brand or the products, that's when you get the best partnerships, because it feels really authentic on the feed. It doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. I think with higher profile celebrities, it's a lot harder to determine what sort of rates they're going to be charging, because I think a lot of it will depend on how in demand they are at that point in time. How big is their media profile? Have they got a book coming out, or are they about to go into the jungle and do I'm a Celebrity? That will massively dictate the rates that they're able to charge. So it's a lot harder to quantify how much you should be paying for a partnership, and also what value you're going to receive from that partnership from the brand's perspective. So I think with the bigger profile celebrities, you get a feel for how much you might be paying, but it can be wildly different depending on the celebrity and the activity that you're asking them to take part in.
What's the most you've ever paid a celebrity?
Me personally? Not much. We've gone to six figures for clients before, for longer term, bigger strategic partnerships that involve multiple channels, multiple activations. I think on the smaller partnership scale, there are more cost effective routes in. But it all depends on the brand and the celebrity, really, how big they are at that point in time. So, and I think we're probably seeing a bit of a shift from marketers in terms of willingness to invest in those collaborations. We know that they can be really impactful from sales, from a revenue perspective. If you look at Adidas, obviously recently collabed with Bad Bunny. Obviously, I'm sure that wasn't the cheapest collaboration, but it was culturally relevant in that moment. It increased their overall revenue by 14% with the Super Bowl, and obviously Bad Bunny's profile being elevated significantly within that time frame. So I think it can drive real commercial impact for
Well, you've seen that,
brands.
haven't you, on some of our clients? The right post from the right influencer can have lodges sold out for months in advance.
Absolutely, it can drive a huge amount of consumer action. It can drive website traffic, sales, video views. It can have a huge impact. And I think actually when you get to that sweet spot of alignment with the right partner, the right product and the right channel, that's when you can really drive tangible impact. You can have, like, it works really well for FMCG brands or, like fashion and beauty. Like I said, you can have products just selling out in minutes because a certain creator has posted about them on the right channels, or they've sold, through TikTok Shop and it's gone absolutely viral. So if you get to that sweet spot, that's when you can drive real commercial impact for brands through those partnerships.
Which I think leads really nicely onto one of my last questions. What are the KPIs that you would use and you'd advise a brand to use when working with a celebrity or influencer?
I think it really depends on the brand and their objectives and what they're really looking to achieve. I think we think of celebrity partnerships a lot of the time sitting at the top of the funnel, because it's usually about how can we use the credibility of this well-known person to drive visibility, awareness, eyeballs on your brand. But I think celebrities and creator partnerships can work at all elements of the funnel. Yes, it can be about reach, video views, driving traffic to the website, but it can also really impactfully drive conversions for brands. It can drive sales of products, services. So I think really defining what the partnership is looking to achieve with the brand is the starting point, and that would very much lead into how we measure its effectiveness and what those KPIs look like. So it can work at all levels of the funnel, essentially, but it would be specific to the brand.
So inevitably, we can't get through, I think, a single podcast without mentioning AI, because what else is everybody talking about? How is the world of celebrity going to be affected by AI? We're going to see a rise of AI-generated celebrities, deep fakes. That's a problem as well. How, can you even believe that it is a celebrity telling you to buy what they're recommending?
Sheer Lux are using them, aren't they? They've got this whole AI department where they're using, fake models,
avatars
avatars to advertise their clothes and things. But they did come under fire for doing that. But now they've sort of owned it. They've created their own social media channels with these AI bots modelling clothes. And I don't know how successful it is, but it looks like the real deal. I can't tell the difference between them. But I think we will see a world with AI movie stars and things in the future, because obviously we're saying younger people don't care about Hollywood stars. Are they still watching those, iconic movies, or are we going to have AI actors and actresses in the future?
It's a scary concept, isn't it?
And models,
I think you're taking work away from real creatives, and you're taking work away from real humans. And I think on the flip side of that, I do think that we talk a lot about the need for human connection in an AI world, and I think we're seeing that in the media landscape. We're seeing that need for trust and authenticity when it comes to experts and the stories that we're putting out to the press, making sure that they do have that human-centric element to them to drive real connection with audiences. And I do think there will be people counteracting the AI influencer world, because the reason that we work with creators is to drive authenticity, it's to build trust, it's to create connection with communities. And I think once we take that element away, it for me, it feels like it loses its impact because an AI avatar has to be programmed by someone. It's the input of a brand. I would feel that I was losing an element of trust there if they were selling a product or service, because it's not a genuine endorsement from a human being. You saw the AI influencer who went to Wimbledon, was it? That was just...
I follow this AI influencer.
People are following this.
Not because I care, I'm just really intrigued.
It's just interesting.
Why? Why is it this AI influencer?
Yeah.
We have plenty of influencers already without an AI
This
one.
is it. I think if you're making a living out of your face, then potentially you're not going to have a career in the future.
So again, scary thought.
That's a very scary
but I do think there is an element of... So working with a celebrity, for example, I think there's a dangerous territory that we're getting into around copyright infringement, the deep fake conversation. Like I saw that a brand had done an AI post where they'd created a visual of Snoop Dogg, and that looks like a brand endorsement then, like how much you're going to pay for a brand collaboration with Snoop Dogg, and you've just done it using an AI tool. And I think we're going to get into it's not regulated heavily enough at the moment, and I think we will get into a space where there is going to be tighter regulation on these things to make sure that artists are being paid fairly, and for any kind of brand representation or perceived brand representation. I think the thing that we might see in the future is individual celebrities almost licensing their likeness, if that makes sense. So it would cost a lot of money to fly a Hollywood star over to the UK to do a photo shoot, for example. But if you were to work on a licensing basis where you can say, we'll use your visual representation in our marketing campaign, AI will get to a point where it's smart enough to take that person's face and create video content, ads, a whole ecosystem of content, but you've just paid a license fee versus doing all of that in person. So I think we might get to a space where celebrities and influencers will license their likeness, if that makes sense. But this is all getting a little bit Black Mirror at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, but that is fascinating.
Yeah.
I just don't know what to believe at the moment. I look on Facebook, I keep getting ads for all these products ranging from personal trainer fitness mirrors through to bone broth. There's a theme, isn't there? And they've all been on this morning, have you? I don't know. Is that an AI or
Yeah.
What to believe?
I think tighter regulation is needed. I was reading an article on the BBC about working to sort of trademark a human generated logo or a stamp that says that this isn't AI, essentially. And I think because AI has accelerated at such pace, I think we've just got a little bit out of touch with what's real and what's not at this point. It's completely snowballed, really, and I think at a pace that hasn't allowed us to put these kind of regulatory processes in place to make sure that individuals are protected, that revenue is protected, and I suppose ultimately the brand's protected as well.
Well, that's a slightly terrifying moment to end on. But
the robots are coming for everything, but
the robots are
all
coming.
Good.
We don't know what's true and what's not. But thank you both very much for sharing your views on the future of influencer and celebrity marketing.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.